Hey you going? It's your mate Valstride, and in today's video we're going to go in depth on all the game's weapons and rank them by their DPS. Let's check it out. So first of all, the method I used to test this was to take each weapon in against Victor and Shadowbeak on normal mode and simply record how long it took to kill the boss. Now I did this 3 times for each weapon so that I could take an average and smooth out some of the variance that comes from scoring more critical hits in any particular fight. In addition to that, I also reduced the damage to player down to 0.1 to help even more with that consistency, because I didn't want to have to focus on surviving or rolling around. I just wanted to lay down as much consistent DPS as possible. And then lastly, I did use a consistent build of 5 gob fins, 3 damage necklaces and the Mammoresk curry so that I could speed up the fight, because some of the weapons were on the bottom end and nearing the time limit. Now even with that being said, a few of the weapons still exceeded the time limit and I wasn't able to get DPS on them normally, so for those I had to increase the damage from player all the way up to 5, but don't worry, I've adjusted for that in the end results by dividing the end result by 5, which puts the base value down to what it would have been if we hadn't adjusted the multiplier. But before we jump straight into the results, I just want to state the obvious and remind everyone that just because something performs better on this list today, it doesn't make it strictly better than all of the other weapons below it on the list. For example, the advanced bow is going to score higher on the DPS than the rocket launcher, but if I'm clearing the level 60 oil rig trash mobs, I definitely want the rocket launcher over the advanced bow any day of the week. And likewise, if I'm a level 20 trying to clear their first tower boss, I don't have access to the advanced bow, so I need to know what is the best weapon for me in my current situation. So with that in mind, think of this more as a data set for informing your decisions than a strict tier list of all the best weapons in order. So here we have it, these are the results that you've been waiting for, and over on the left I've got all of the weapons ranked by DPS at their base level, and then on the right I've done the same thing but at the legendary tier. So you can see there were some meaningful ups and downs or shifts within the rankings, but to the surprise of absolutely no one, the plasma cannon, the laser gatling gun and the multi-guided missile launcher were all number 1, 2 and 3. I think we all knew that this was the meta, so there's no surprises there at all. I was a little bit surprised with how much higher the plasma cannon performed compared to the other weapons, but I think that's very much in part due to the nature of how I conducted the testing. One of the other meaningful results that I found in here was that the makeshift SMG, despite being one of the earliest to unlock, actually was a lot higher than some of the level 30 unlocks on this list. So you definitely want to get that one as soon as you can, and that's going to serve you well in the early game. In addition to that, what you're seeing here is some of the same information but with a few more interesting data points added on. So over on the far left we have all of the attack values for each of the weapons at each of their tiers, and then a little to the right of that we have the percentage increase per tier. So for example, the plasma cannon gets a 10% increase between uncommon and common, all the way up to a 30% increase between uncommon and legendary. Now what's interesting about this is to then compare those to the increase between uncommon and legendary as far as DPS goes, because they didn't always correlate. So the laser gatling gun is the most stark example of this, and it should have had a 30% increase based on its raw attack value, but I only saw a 15% increase when testing the DPS. Now the reason for this, as far as I can tell, is that the laser gatling gun killed the boss really quick. So relative to its overall completion time, it actually had a lot of downtime during the reloading, where both the legendary and the uncommon tier were doing the same amount of DPS, which was 0 because I was reloading. So that overall diluted or watered down the DPS increase that we should have seen for the rank 4. Conversely, you can see the opposite happen with things like the SMG and the assault rifle, where they actually had increases in their DPS that exceeded what you would expect based on just the increase for their attack values. And that's because not only did they get a raw or more damage per bullet, but they also got increased clip sizes, so you had to reload less during the fight. And the last thing I want to point out is that you do see a few red values over in the legendary DPS recordings, and that's just because I didn't have those weapons and I wasn't going to go out and farm these just for the sake of this test. So what I did there was just apply the percentage increase based on the flat values to those weapons to roughly gauge their rankings. But overall, you can still at least see their average DPS ranking at their base value. But that's everything for today. If you enjoyed this and you found it helpful, remember to like, subscribe, leave me a comment down below. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.